Hello, everyone. I'm Ernie Humphrey, the CEO of Treasury Webinars. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for our webinar today, Delivering Value from AP, Data, Dashboards, Metrics that Matter. I would like to thank our webinar partner today, Esker, whose strong commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible. The expectation of accounts payable has evolved from a back office function to a strategic operation that impacts the bottom line. Does your team have the right tools to make that positive impact? Getting the right data to the right people at the right time is the foundation of unlocking the value of accounts payable at your company. Today, we will explore notable trends in the P2P space, including the use of technologies such as AI, RPA, supplier portals, and mobile functionality, how to assess your company's data needs relative to accounts payable, how to understand your company's consumers of accounts payable data, how to identify the metrics that matter for your company, and how to deliver information and analysis that mitigate processing costs and non-value-add tasks while empowering your company to take more control of how and when you make payments. Before we delve into the content, I'm going to offer a few quick words about Treasury Webinars, cover a few housekeeping items, and review our learning objectives as they define to you our ROI for investing your valuable time to attend our webinar today. At Treasury Webinars, we offer webinars designed to empower Treasury, accounts payable, and accounts receivable success at companies of all sizes across all industries. We only do what we do best, which is webinars. Now for the exciting housekeeping items. For those of you interested in receiving CTP credits for today's webinar, you'll have to answer all of our polling questions, remain online for the duration of the webinar, and complete the post-webinar survey, which will launch immediately at the conclusion of the webinar. If you have any questions regarding CTP credit, please send an email to ernie@treasurywebinars.com. Again, any questions regarding CTP credit, or if you would like a copy of today's presentation, send an email to ernie@treasurywebinars.com. I'd like to hear from you today, and I can take your questions at any time in the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll do my best to get to your questions at the tail end of the webinar during our Q&A session if we have time. Fear not. If I do not get to your question, I will follow up with you directly after the webinar. Finally, we appreciate your consideration in taking a short survey at the end of the webinar today, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for their valuable time. Now, what's our value proposition to you for investing your time today? I want you to understand what's driving current and emerging APA trends, identify opportunities to leverage the right AP metrics at your company, understand the current and emerging role of AI in helping companies optimize their cash conversion cycles, identify specific opportunities to lower cost, improve supplier relationships and productivity across the enterprise at your company by leveraging the right AP-related technology, and to understand 10 specific ways the bottom line is being impacted at companies that have invested in accounts payable. Automation, how are we going to accomplish those objectives today? What's the roadmap for our journey together today? We're going to take a look at some accounts payable trends, and to me, these trends are fascinating from even where AP was at 5 years ago. And then we'll talk about AP information reporting, and we'll talk about information intelligence versus information reporting, extremely valuable, not only in accounts payable, but any type of reporting. And then we'll dive into accounts payable metrics that matter. And then we'll talk about the art of creating and sharing that intelligence. Again, intelligence impacts decisions. Otherwise, information is just that, information, and there's no value in it. There's no need to make the time, all the time you spend on that activity if it's not impacting decisions. And then we'll talk about what I see as the future of AP and artificial intelligence. We'll alleviate some of the fears that you might have around artificial intelligence, tell you the ways that companies are leveraging AI and AP now and in the future, and then we'll really give you, I think, a tremendously valuable, just this one slide is tremendously valuable, 10 ways AP done right impacts the bottom line. So if you aren't on a AP project at this time, we'll give you a really easy way to make the business case to make your CFO pay attention. Now, the CFO normally doesn't look to accounts payable to meet their priorities, which are driving growth, right, and mitigating cost. And so the good news is now with AP done right, we can help the CFO deliver on their strategic priorities. And so that's going to make your CFO pay attention to accounts payable. And then we'll also offer you some additional resources, which I think is very important. So I'm not going to be able to answer all of your questions today or transform your accounts payable by the end of this webinar, but I'm going to make you think, and I'm going to empower you with information to ask the right questions. And again, My goal is to give you specific opportunities to improve the value of accounts payable at your company. And so let's take a quick look at some accounts payable trends. And you'll note on many slides I'll have hyperlinks to some research that I use. So I like to cite research in order to back up my contentions and make my points. But here, I love this graph because it shows the survey asked the survey respondents, how is the AP viewed at your company? And we look at over 50% view AP as very valuable or exceptionally valuable. We have 34% and somewhat valuable, and we have 14% in little value. So to me, this shows how far we've already come from AP being a back office function to a strategic function. Because when I was in Treasury, and this was a little while ago, over 10 years ago, what we would have seen, that little value number probably would have been 50%, I hate to say. And I think what we're going to start to see as companies really start to invest in AP automation, the first piece of that is just visibility. Once you invest in getting visibility into AP processes, what you'll see is there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there. So the first thing I advise companies to do is let's take a look at how much it costs for you to process an invoice. So let's, in painstaking detail, let's look at people, process, technology. Let's look at the cost. Let's look at how much time is being spent in each area, and you'll see how much time is being spent on non-value activities, how many risk exposures we're creating, and so you'll see a lot of low-hanging fruit. And what we'll see in survey data is we'll start to see this wheel shift. And so we'll start to see exceptionally valuable. That 42% will go up to 10. We'll start to shift. We'll start to shift this 34% over to this 42%. And so we'll see this wheel shift. But this to me shows some tremendous progress that's being made. And some more information from our friends at the IOFM, the future of AP. 3 years from now, progress made in automatic invoices compared to today. And so what is the view of these companies? And so they're over 50% say we'll have made significant progress, 32% slight progress, little progress. We'd like to see this number at 100%, so maybe you're already automating your invoice processing, but the goal is to have all of us doing that. And you'll see the tremendous value in that. And so some more data from the future of accounts payable. Technologies that will have a significant impact on your accounts payable department success. I would argue the majority of these things should be having that impact right now, and you should be looking to these technologies and seeing what value they might add. And so image capture, incredibly valuable on many levels. So we have a lot of manual data being inputted, and there's a lot of OCR technologies and AI technologies. ACH payments are going to have a significant impact on AP department success, because what we want to do, we want to take control of how we make payments. And so as we move away from checks, ACH is less costly and also reduces our risk exposures. Mobile, what we love to see is folks being able to prove things online so we don't create bottlenecks. There's a lot of cloud-based applications out there for AP automation solutions. So that's valuable on many levels. A couple things, cloud-based solutions don't require the investment of your IT department, and there's no need to worry about patches and updates. And then intelligent data capture, I think that's more on the AI side. So we have P2P automation, so that's having that automation all the way through the process. It includes one payment file with all types of payments, and then card payments. Again, card payments just gets back to controlling the portfolio of your payments. So one of the things that you should look to in accounts payable and work with Treasury on this is let's look at how we make payments and let's see how we optimize that. That's where a lot of companies still don't look for that value in accounts payable. So one of the metrics that we want to look at is our mix of payments. How many folks are paying by check, ACH? Do we have wires? Why do we have checks? Why? Are there opportunities to convert folks to card payments or virtual payments that might have some rebates for us? Again, some of the things that are kind of on the forefront here, which I see is coming, is artificial intelligence. We'll talk about today. RPA, we'll talk about that today. Online collaboration, that number should be a lot higher. And one of the areas where we see that is supplier portals. And so we'll talk about that. So having supplier portals, getting your suppliers on a supplier portal is tremendously valuable as on many levels. One is that it decreases the friction in our relationship. It reduces information asymmetries. It mitigates the time that we're going to spend on suppliers on the phone. When I see research for how long people at companies and AP are spending on time with suppliers, going over perceived issues, it's mind-blowing to me. And then, of course, 2% down in blockchain. To me, I think that's a little bit overhyped, but we'll wait and see. So really, I guess the point of this slide is that AP, we should be embracing technology. And so if you're an accounts payable professional, you shouldn't be threatened by technology. You should view it as an opportunity to mitigate the time that you spend on non-value-add activities and to redefine your value proposition. So this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for AP to redefine their value proposition. So let's not be threatened by technology. Let's own technology and use it to make ourselves more valuable. And then if we look at areas currently being managed and supported by AP, if they're already being supported at your company, fantastic. If not, these are areas where you should be looking to your AP team to upgrade their skill sets, and you have to give them the technology to do that. And when you mitigate the time they spend on non-value-add activities, you can look to them to do this. Fraud prevention, we want to look at Treasury as well with this. One of the ways we do fraud protection is through optimizing, our payment mix, also making sure that we use technology that allows us to automate controls, give us an audit trail. We mitigate manual processes, and we remove the number of systems involved and parties involved. That mitigates our risk exposures. P2P technology, our payments platform, supply chain financing, spend management. So we're starting to look at spend management in terms of AP and T&E. And this is my soapbox. Everyone knows this who's listened to me speak before. Supplier relationship management, incredibly important for the value of AP. The better relationships we have with our supplier, the more control we can take over how and when we make payments. So when we start to be able to process invoices more quickly and we have visibility, we can take advantage of discounts that exist. We can identify opportunities to do some dynamic discounting, and we can also communicate effectively the value to our suppliers of being paid the way that we would like to pay them. And actually, suppliers actually want electronic payments, and we can get that remittance information over them. Guess what? AP done right on our side lowers the AR processing costs from our suppliers. And then, of course, myself, Treasury guy at heart, cash management and corporate liquidity. Once we start to take control of how and when we make payments, we know when the payments are going to be made. We can optimize our working capital, our cash management. We can keep from borrowing money when we don't need to. We can keep from entering into foreign exchange transactions when we don't need to. So we can take better control of the deployment of our payments, which is actually a focus of a lot of investors now at those of you at publicly traded companies. And then we see some more trends. These are just, again, ways where we look to value. Functional collaboration. We want automation end-to-end. Intelligence Hub, again, we want to use that, collect that information on suppliers, how they spend, identify opportunities for our procurement team. And in today's world, a lot of suppliers are becoming our business partners in joint ventures. And so just more information on what you should be expecting of your AP team and things where you can kind of take the bull by the horn. So let's go ahead and launch our first polling question here, kind of level set on where we're at in the audience in terms of where your company is at currently in terms of the process of automating accounts payable. Maybe you're just starting, you're evaluating AP automation solutions, you have a short list, you're implementing or have an AP automation in place already, or you don't know at this point. And so I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today. Those of you interested in receiving CTP credit for today's webinar, you'll have to answer all of our polling questions here today. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and leave the polling question up for another 10 seconds or so. Then we'll go ahead and take a quick peek at the results. I'll give a little bit of color commentary, and I'll just give you a little color around how I see this webinar providing value to those of you. And again, there's going to be value to you wherever you are at in the terms of the AP automation progress at your company. So let's go ahead and give you a couple more seconds here. Let's go ahead and close the poll. Let's go ahead and share the results. And so we have 36% of you currently evaluating or just starting the discovery phase. So those of you in the discovery phase, we are motivating you to take the time, right, and do this right, and show you that how to create the value proposition. And so what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to make that business case, identify the specific components of opportunity to deliver ROI from your project. If you're evaluating AP automation solutions, we're going to share with you what you need to be asking your AP automation solution vendors for. Are you able to deliver all of the components of the value that should be extracted from an AP automation solution? So we'll give you that checklist and say, how are we doing this? How are you going to help me facilitate better supplier relationships? How are we going to remove invoice processing costs? How are we going to mitigate the time and the cost of this? And then if you have a short list of AP automation vendors, hopefully this is going to help you do a better job of asking the right questions before you make that final decisions. And so giving you, again, this ROI, making sure that you are making a very important decision. For those of us in AP and Treasury, we may only get one chance to lead a huge project, and this can be career defining. Implementing or have an AP automation solution in place for you, just to make sure that you are getting all the value that you deserve out of your investment. A lot of times I see companies invest in technology and it's not being utilized. So work with your vendors and make sure that everything is turned on, your folks are adopting the solutions. And if you see that what you've got in place or what you're implementing is not even close to what we're talking about today, then it's time to go back. As painful as that may be, let's go back. Let's go back and get you on the solution that you deserve. It's probably a cloud-based solution, so you can make that change. Again, once in a career opportunity for a lot of folks, so let's do it right. Don't know, your homework is to find out. So if you're in Treasury, what's going to be going on in Treasury is we're going to take more control over the cash conversion cycle. So let's find out what's going on in AP. Go over and ask the questions. Hey, do we have an AP automation project in place? What are your pain points? Start that conversation. And then maybe you'll say, I was just on this webinar, so I was just curious, what do you guys think about this? And then you can help lead that project or help kind of push them, educate them. They can come to you for value. And so that's a good way to add value across the enterprise. Treasury success and AP success is about technology and relationships. So let's take advantage when those opportunities come up. So thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time to answer the polling question here today. So let's talk about metrics and business intelligence. And so one of the things that we need to be able to do in order to deliver value is we need to be able to take an honest look in the mirror and say, okay, where are we at, right? Where are we at? And then benchmark, where is that relative to best in class, apples to apples? And then what do we need to do to get there? And where does it make sense to invest? And so we need to have that look in the mirror. Again, one of the first things I suggest is invoice processing costs. How much does it cost us to process that invoice? And there's a lot of free tools out there that will help you do that, what you need to consider. And then let's take a look, and then you'll start to see areas of opportunity. And then we'll talk about some other metrics, the other things we want to be able to look at. We want to be able to, obviously, we want to get visibility. We want to have reporting capabilities. We want to have visibility into how effective we are at taking discounts, and then how timely we are at processing those invoices so we can actually take advantage of discounts. And so a quote, companies need to understand the information needs of its consumers to deliver the right information at the right time. Information is only intelligent if it impacts decisions. And so we not only need to be reporting metrics, we need to be looking at trends in those metrics. We need to be able to either be telling the story behind the number or empowering people to tell the story behind those numbers. And sometimes we'll just be doing a level set. This is what I expected. That's fine. But we need to get that visibility and be able to tell the story behind the numbers. So let's go ahead and take a little level set here before we start talking about metrics. Just hoping you'll share with me how many AP metrics your company currently leverages. Is it none, maybe 1 to 5, 6 to 10, more than 10, or maybe you don't know at this time? Again, I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today. Those of you interested in CTP credit, You'll have to answer all of our polling questions here today. Also want to remind you that I can take your questions at any time in the questions area if you go to Webinar Control Panel. A few questions on the webinar slides. I'd be happy to share the webinar slides with you. Just send an email to Ernie@treasurywebinars.com. Again, that's ERNIE at one word, treasurywebinars.com. I'll go ahead and leave the polling question up for another few seconds, do a little color commentary there, and then we'll start to talk about AP reporting, how to do that right, and then we'll dive into the metrics and help you decide what metrics matter at your companies. But it's really, the first level is understanding the consumers of your data and getting with them and really understanding what metrics matter to them. What are the drivers of success for AP in your company, and how do we deliver metrics that allow us to establish the relationships between those metrics and the drivers of AP success. Let's go ahead and close the polling question. Let's go ahead and share. And so 34% of you have a homework problem you should find out. Your AP metrics, how you're measuring success, and then after this webinar, you'll be able to have a conversation of, hey, these are some of the things we might want to consider. Those of you who do none, I think that's a good step for you to decide which metrics that matter. You really need to do that, because otherwise you don't know where you're at. And I think some folks just look at AP as a cost of doing business, and we can do better than that. And so we need to be able to create some sort of benchmarks. And if you're at none, there's a tremendous opportunity there. 1 to 5 is our biggest category, 37%, more than 10, 6%. So that can be valuable, but we also want to be careful that we don't have too many metrics. We got to make sure that we have the data available to deliver those metrics in a timely manner. But again, some of the number can depend, where you stand depends on where you sit. So it depends on your company, the complexity, your industry. So I'm not going to tell you there's a right number. I'm going to tell you that I think 0 is the wrong number, and I don't think that you need 20. So usually what we see is, I would say the sweet spot that I see is probably between 3 to 5, 3 to 6. But again, at a complicated company, maybe a retail company, a complicated supply chain, international supply chain, that can complicate things. Then you'd be more of a 6 to 10 or in that higher category. So thank you very much, everyone, for answering the polling questions. And so this is probably going to look familiar to many folks. And so we're going to talk about what the reporting cycle usually looks like, and then what it should look like, and then we'll dive into the metrics. Again, we need to understand the needs of our consumers first. And this is not, I've never seen this communicated before. I communicate this framework here. I've tweaked this with one of my webinar partners on the AR side, High Radius. They've educated me on this, and so I've taken some of their diagrams and tweaked those. But this is what usually happens, right? When we're going to improve something, we need to get the lay of the land, right? Where are we at? What do we need to be? So let's see where we're at on reporting. What usually happens? Multiple input sources. We may be getting data from ERP, maybe an AP onboarding solution, could be a supplier portal, so people from procurement, maybe a treasury system, maybe Excel. And what are we doing? We're having people manually extract data. You're manually building spreadsheets. We have limited reporting tools. We send the same reports to managers and executives, don't we? Most of us. I used to do that. Why? So you have multiple consumers with different requirements. And so I think this is a really good way to look at things. You have your finance executives, consumers, and we have functional managers. And so what happens? You get the same report. What happens? You're not meeting their needs. They want more insight. You need more reports. You go back and forth in this cycle. So you spend all your time creating this reports. How much time do you spend on analysis? Little to none. And so this becomes an endless cycle. But the good news is we can break the cycle. So let's just see what we see is we have time consuming, right? This takes a lot of time. It's heavily resource dependent. We're manually extracting data. We're building spreadsheets. We don't have one version of the truth. We're manually creating these reports, sending them, formatting them, probably changing the titles on the reports. So the top side, and heavy scope of errors. And then if we go down here, we have a lack of customization and no ability to drill down for more insights. So one of the things that we should look to do is to allow our consumers to drill into things and do a little self-reporting. But I think a lot of where I can offer some insight is you want to empower your people to ask the right questions. And so it's not that I'm ever frustrated that I get questions from my CFO or my manager. It's just that I get questions that are kind of like, where did that come from? Whereas if they would have gotten some better information up front, they would be asking the right questions, and they'd probably be asking questions that I would expect them to ask, right? And sometimes you can be proactive in telling the story. You can say, you see that this number went up. Okay, why is that the case? And be proactive. So that's really the cat's meow there. And so let's see what it looks like done right. So we still have these sources of information. Of course, we got to make sure they're accurate and timely. We automatically extract the data. We automatically build all the reports might be required based on industry best practices, what your company needs. We segregate and customize dashboards for different users. So we have, boom, finance executives, we can have a subgroup there, we can have a subgroup there. What do they need? What is the dashboard they need? What are the metrics that they want to see? Let them go in and deep dive. Do we need more insight? More reports available on dashboards. So we mitigate this back and forth and need more insight. Of course, there's going to be a no here, but this kind of shows you what I think is what definitely is possible in today's world. And at the base of that is understanding your information consumers. And so let's divide these into 5 categories. So you have your CFOs, you have your controllers, your finance managers, maybe your treasury managers, your AP managers, and then your AP specialists and your managers. And so what we want to do is we want to look at things that are valuable to them. So what are the priorities to them? What is their interest in accounts payable? And then what information do we need to get them? So we can do this by understanding. So on the AP clerk side, they want to prioritize their workload and act on real-time metrics. They want to have automatic reminders sent to improvers so we can help their productivity things. And they never want to miss a supplier discount with early payment invoices. So we want to empower them with better information. So some of the metrics that they're going to be judged on are our workload. How much do we get things done? Do we resolve disputes in a timely manner? Do we get discounts? And then the AP manager, they're going to have overall responsibility for function spend. What's our AP spend? And they want to monitor their team's efficiency and allocate resources. So they want to know how much time is being spent at each area within the AP process. And they want to follow a little bit higher level trends from their homepage. And then they want to be able to access the invoice audit trail to mitigate the time their folks spend with auditors. The finance managers, we're looking at negotiated discounts. We want to identify opportunities for issues with early discounts. And so we want to be able to see how quickly we're making payments, and we want to be able to see how long does it take us to process that invoice? How do we get better at that? See what suppliers make up the majority of the invoices. So let's focus our attention maybe on that 80-20 rule. And now we want to look at how long it takes us to go through the approval stage. And then the controller, just a little bit different. So monitor and control budgets by cost center. And then on the CFO side, you want to look at the general health of your processes and the cost, maybe your FTE versus number of invoices. And then you also might want to look at certain things, make sure that you have the fraud protection controls in place. So let's look at dive down a little bit into some metrics. And so first, let's look at some top level indicators, more towards the executive staff and the higher level folks. They'll want to look at the total cost of AP. They'll want to look at DPO, days payable outstanding, cost to process a single invoice. I think everyone should pay attention to this, but it's a high level metric. Time to process a single invoice. These are tremendously important. And this is really where technology is offering us the ability to really make a big difference. When you start to look at the potential savings in terms of processing an invoice, they can be incredible. And so what we often see between maybe a lower automation on the automation front versus a highly automated company, that difference is at least $10 an invoice, if not more. Multiply that by the number of invoices, incredibly powerful. Time to process the invoice. And so this gives us opportunities not only to take existing discounts, but to also negotiate. And then we want to look at the discount dollars lost as a percentage of available discount dollars, so we can be leaving a lot of money on the table. So at that CFO level, we're looking at the finance side. How how are we taking it, how are we optimizing our capital, what's our opportunity cost of capital, how can we best be utilizing, and it almost always makes sense to take a discount. And so if we want to look at a little lower level, some process health indicators, maybe for our managers. So average cost to process an invoice by type. So there might be differences there. So you could have different processes. So you may have a different type of invoice, especially international invoices. Average time to process invoice by type again. So we might start to see trends here. So we might have an upper bound on invoice by type. You want to look at your invoice exception rate, products received not invoiced. So let's take a look at our matching efficiency and algorithm. That's another place where I found there's tremendous amount of inefficiencies, especially in manufacturing. Related to that, percentage of invoices linked to a percentage of suppliers using electronic invoices. We want to definitely get to that electronification. That's going to impact average cost, time to processes. And then we want to look at erroneous payments as a percent of total payments. And then, like I said before, we want to look at electronic payments as a percentage of total payments. So let's go ahead and break up our content here a little bit. And then let's just get a level set on how many invoices that your company processes each month. Less than 50, 50 to 99, 100 to 249, 250 to 500, or more than 500. Shouldn't say 15. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm reading off the wrong categories. Less than 200, 200 to 499, 500 to 999, 1,000 to 1499, or more than 1,500. And so I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today. Again, those of you interested in CTP credits for today, you'll have to answer all the polling questions during the webinar. And also want to remind you that we can take your questions at any time in the questions area of our GoToWebinar control panel. We'll go ahead and leave the polling question up for another few seconds. Then we'll go ahead and we'll take a quick peek and see what our distribution of invoices are, and then I'll make a few comments there, and then we'll start to look at more AP metrics, and this will be more at the analyst level, manager level, the productivity indicators. And so what we want to do is we want to look at the health indicators and the process indicators as well. So let's go ahead and close the polling question. Let's take a look here. So we have 41% of you, which are more than 1,500. So you have 20 still have a pretty decent volume. So let's just look at the lower end. 200 a month times 12 months, and that's still a significant number of invoices. $10 an invoice. Would you like to take that off the bottom line? What if you're doing 2,000 a month? 2,000 a month times 12 months. Multiply that by $10, be more efficient. Your CFO is going to probably give you a medal, right? And so there's a lot of room for opportunity. That being said, it's not necessarily about the number. So specific industries, inherently a higher cost. So I've seen the cost to process an invoice in airline industries as far high as $200. Well, let's just say you can get from $200 to $100, then that's $100 times all those invoices. And that's definitely not the only component of the value proposition. So in addition to the invoice processing cost, we're mitigating the time spent on non-value-add activities. We got to look at that productivity impact. We also got to look at the impact we can have on working capital management as well. And so there's multiple, and we can also take more control over the payments. And so what's the value in optimizing our payments mix? And so it's not just about the business cases. I want to do AP automation because it lowers our invoice processing costs and we can get rid of people with headcount. No, we can do much better than that. There's multiple legs to this value proposition stool, and it's not necessarily that we want to reduce headcount. It's that we want to optimize the time that we are spending. So we want to optimize the time spent on value-add activities. And so let's look at these productivity indicators. If you're looking at it as a manager at the individual analyst level, number of invoice processed per day by AP professional, number of issues resolved by employee by exception type, number of payments resolved by employee by issue type. And so these are just some ways to measure that productivity. And I think I know what you'll see is when you invest in technology, you should see these numbers go up, so you can really track what's the ROI. Number of invoice processes per day is going to go up. number of invoice issues resolved by employee by exception type. If this person is leveraging the technology correctly, that they should be much more efficient here. And the number of payment issues resolved, the number of payment issues, first of all, will go down because you eliminate asymmetry in information, but also you'll give them that visibility, and we'll give them a 360-degree view of those supplier relationships, which is incredibly important. So these are all different areas, all different metrics, all the things that can offer you value. Again, where you stand depends on where you sit. So the frequency of your payments, your industry, your supply chain, but these are all potentially areas that will have value. And so you want to go directly to the consumers of your information and say, okay, what are the priorities of your department, of your individuals, and say, okay, what information do you need to measure success? And then you should show, well, these are some metrics that I'm seeing in the AP benchmarking data. Are we using these? Are these valuable? And then you can have a conversation around, if you're in Treasury, get your AP manager, your controller, your CFO even, and let's all get on the same page and say, what information do we need for metrics, and how do we track those metrics? How do we report the metrics? And how does that impact decisions? Again, intelligent data. We need to be impacting decisions. So now let's shift to artificial intelligence, and then we'll get into the kind of what's on the cutting edge in accounts payable. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, AI is the ability of a computer or computer-controlled robot to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings, such as the ability to reason, discover meaning, generalize, or learn from past experience. And so essentially, AI is a computer that mimics human intelligence. Now, let's be clear, it has to be intelligent behavior. So I think there's still a lot of fear around artificial intelligence. So that being the case, let's go ahead and ask the next polling question. I'd just like to see what you believe your company's view is around artificial intelligence. Do most of you and your colleagues think it's just hype? Maybe you're skeptical but paying attention. Maybe you just think it's too small for this to matter. Or you're looking at or already have solutions that leverage AI, or you really don't know at this point. You may have heard of it in a cursory manner, but you really haven't talked about it internally, so you're not really informed enough about the topic. So let's go ahead and leave this polling question up for another few seconds or so. Again, I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today. Again, those of you interested in CTP credit, you need to answer all of our polling questions. And then what we'll do is we'll start to walk you through why you shouldn't be afraid and actually show you how AI is actually being leveraged by companies now. And it's actually pretty cool. So I get excited about AP now. It's been a long time coming for me. There hasn't been much going on in AP for a long time, but it's actually very exciting. So hopefully you will see the potential there as well at your company. So let's go ahead and close the polling question. Let's go ahead, take a quick look. I'm glad to see that we have almost 47% looking at or have solutions. I think the percentage of that will go up after the webinar is over. But I do see the reason for skepticism. And so I think part of it is a good job in terms of education. And I will tell you, it's not too small for this to matter to you. And then if you don't know, this is just something that's going to be coming your way. So you don't want to be blindsided, whether you're in Treasury, AP, AR, whatever you're in finance, credit, whatever it might be, you're going to be asked about AI. So you need to get yourself up to speed. You do not want to be flat-footed. Let's say you're the Treasury manager, AP manager, AR manager, and someone comes in and says, what do you think about this AI? Are we using this? Why not? I read this article. Guarantee your CFO is going to be reading some article about it, and he's going to be all excited, and then he's going to come in and say, why aren't we doing this? And you better have the answer. Please, I can say that because I've been in your shoes before. All right, so this is just kind of some fun facts. AI can be traced all the way back to 1956, and it was founded as an academic discipline. So this is great cocktail talk, right? When you're at your conference, someone talks about AI. Did you know AI was an academic discipline back in 1956? Unfortunately, every time we see AI in a movie, it's sinister and sensationalized. And so fortunately, the real evolution of AI is far less scary, and it's actually predictable. So I talk a lot about accounts payable careers now. And so what I tell folks in accounts payable is that you need to look at technology as an opportunity to redefine your value proposition. You can't afford to be afraid of technology. You need to embrace it. Again, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to redefine your profession, so let's take advantage of it. And so what really makes people more at ease is they think, if you really start to look at, you're already using AI. So I went through this with the cloud as well. I talked about cloud computing, and I would tell people you're already using cloud computing, you just don't know it yet. And so here's some things which I'm sure at least one or all of these ride-sharing apps, Uber, Lyft, they use AI, virtual assistants, Siri, Cortana, Alexa, navigation apps. Thank God we have navigation apps, or I would never get anywhere. Google Maps, Waze. You use streaming media services, Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, social networking, Facebook, Pinterest, Snapchat, your home, smart home devices, Nest, Amazon Echo, Google Home. And so you're already using AI. So these should show you that some of you may be a little afraid. To me, I love it when I go shopping and it tells me what I want. That's great. I don't have to mess around and look for it. And so again, you can have a positive view or a negative view. It's going to help your career if you have a positive view. And so here's another thing that should really help it resonate well with you, to say, okay, this is why I need to pay attention. If it's your CFO, this is why we need to pay attention, or you have to convince your CFO. It makes it easier for people to do their jobs. It removes daily burden of repetitive, low-value tasks, frees up us time to focus on business-building activities, improves internal process efficiency, and then in terms of the P2P side, faster and simpler onboarding. This is also tremendously important. It makes it easier for customers to do business with your company, and suppliers, it reduces errors and bottlenecks, improves accountability and transparency in interactions, it increases availability, flexibility of your support and service teams. It empowers your teams to be proactive instead of reactive. Wouldn't that be beautiful? And it mitigates business complexity and fuels growth. It revenue. Anytime you can reallocate time away from non-value-add activities, this is tremendously important, because now that we're starting to see how much time is being spent on non-value-add activities in AP and AR and across the organization, it's really amazing how much low-hanging fruit there is to give people back parts of their day and direct them to things that can add value. In AP case, improve supplier relationships, take control of how and when you get paid. Let's keep that in mind. That's mine. Get on my soapbox. Taking more control of how and when you get paid. So let's take a deeper look. AI's role in P2P. We talked about supplier information. We talked about supplier management. One of the things where I often struggled is supplier information management. And so what we can do, AI can help us do a better job of linking our parent and child relationships together, and when electronic information comes in and there's wrong information, maybe it's fat-fingered, once corrections are made, the AI programs recognize that and automatically corrects those issues. Same things in contract management that can detect issues based on things that were done in the past. It can help us with procurement. We'll talk a lot more about AP automation. It can help us manage our expenses, which include T&E, and then it can help us optimize our payments flow and also recognize opportunities in supply chain financing. So to go up just a little bit more, a level here, just to take a step back for a moment and these terms that you might hear. And so this slide, I would just print it out, and just things that you may get into. I don't want to spend too much time in here. I'll put myself to sleep. Just common words. API, RPA is not AI. Robotic process automation, it's much like a vehicle's cruise control on aircraft or autopilot. It can easily program to do basic human tasks. It doesn't learn on its own. It only works with structured data. So I'll give you an example on LinkedIn. And so don't tell LinkedIn. When I send out invitations, I can use an automated solution where it automatically mimics my behavior. I tell it, I want to invite people that are CFOs from New York City. This is my message. Send the invitation. I can watch it mimic my behavior. It's doing exactly what I told it to do. I told it to do a search. I told it to identify this person. I told it to type it in there, and I told it to push the button send, and it's just like I'm doing it. It's not learning anything, right? And then we have machine learning, which is a type of AI that uses algorithms to parse data, evaluates what users do on documents and data fields and apply them, learn to make informed decisions. And so it really does things like auto learning, auto correct, auto fill, along with providing alerts on deviations. So those of you that use Grammarly like I do, and I make a lot of mistakes, right? That's something where it recognizes my patterns and my behavior. And then process automation describes a set of intelligent technology that improves the daily lives of the users, and so maybe automated document routing. And then we have at the upper level deep learning. It's composed of algorithms that permit software to train itself to perform tasks by multi-layered neural networks. Whoa, that's complicated. Automated tasks including image recognition and analysis, predictive analytics, and big data analysis. And so up at the top we have deep learning, and so it's able to learn, apply rules, and one of the big things is that it can deal with non-structured data. And so here it is. Let's get this a little bit simpler, right? So what's AI in action? Process automation. Your company receives a PO. The first time the solution has seen the PO, it extracts the information using a specific algorithm, automatically searches for the vendor and a pattern corresponding to the PO number. Once it's identified, it looks for the open PO items in the database and matches them to the invoice based on the total invoice amount. Expected invoice lines are displayed and the amounts and quantities are set to their expected values. So that automates what would normally a manual process. It arrives, we're extracting the data, and then we're using an automated data reconciliation based on specific rules. There's no learning going on here. Now, what about machine learning? Imagine a scenario where a customer sends in an order for the first time, the header data was captured, but essential line data was missing. The user makes a necessary correction to the order by filling in the gaps, line items, and then it automatically learns from these changes so that the next time the same customer sends an order, it will automatically know how to extract the info based on the line layout, adapting to potential tweaks along the way. So we might tell our employers, we need you to modify what you send us, but if they don't, the algorithm is going to automatically populate those. Just imagine how much time that is going to spend. And then another way to look at this is even more clear. Machine learning, user corrects or fills in the missing field, maybe the order number. User corrections recorded for next time. It learns. Recognition increases, and so what happens is next time the invoice comes in, it's going to recognize that. It's going to save our time. What about deep learning? A batch of invoices arrive, right? The first time into the solution. Training itself through application automatically recognizes and suggests a split for the batch, despite the fact that some invoices are multiple pages. So you might have different rules, different suppliers, so it'll automatically segment the batches for processing. And then a user identifies the split as correct, and then they're split and placed in the queue for AP verification. So we've got multiple sources of data, maybe unstructured data. So I think after the webinar is over, asking for the slides, look through the slides, listen to this again, and just really understand, and it's incredibly powerful what's being done. If you're not in AP, sit down and listen to this recording with your AP folks and just ask them, how much time does it take you to do these things? And you'll be amazed how much time can be saved there. And then I won't go through this slide, but this is a dense slide, but this is incredibly a very good summary for Mesker. This slide is absolutely fantastic to show you the value proposition of AI in accounts payable. And so we've got deep learning, we have auto splitting, the in-vendor invoices are properly split. We have the process automation, global field recognition, some ideas how the teaching is going on, and for the machine learning, we have the auto learning, then we have general ledger auto application. Wouldn't it be nice to remove some of those accounting entries, and then the future invoice amounts so we can allocate those correctly, and then the supplier recognition. And so this right here is a fantastic slide for AI. If you're looking at AI and accounts payable, this is really where the leading edge of the technology is, and they're constantly doing that. So that's incredibly exciting to me. And then the takeaways from AI, really it's about maximizing the value of the data and learning from the data and learning from the folks that are using the data. So in addition to the data, as our folks are making corrections, it's actually educating the software with their knowledge. So maybe they're correcting things based on their knowledge, and that knowledge is really baked into the system. It's not magic. It's a cooperative solution. It's not siloed. It's sustainable, and I would argue that it's not something to fear. Again, technology is coming. You can't avoid it. You need to be out in front of technology, or you're going to have some risk into your career. And so here's my business case for you, CFOs, and if you're not the CFO, here's my business case to any company of any size in any industries about why you need to invest in AP done right. It mitigates your invoice processing costs. We need to quantify that, right? How much does it cost us now? How much improvement can we get by investing in AP automation in the right solution partner? Mitigates the payment of duplicate invoices. Once you get visibility, you're going to see that your company pays duplicate invoices. How do we eliminate that? What's the savings? Mitigates time spent on resolving supplier issues, disputes. You should have a metric. How much time are we spending on the phone with supplier issues? You'll be surprised. I've seen metrics where every single person in AP at a company spends 3 to 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours a week, sometimes 3 to 4 hours a day. A lot of these things can be taken care of through removing asymmetries of information and leveraging things like supplier portals. It allows discount opportunities to be captured. We need to have that visibility. What are you missing out on, right, in terms of your opportunities? Do you even know? Again, it almost always makes sense to take that discount. The more timely you can make the facilitate early payment discount programs, dynamic discounting, supply chain financing opportunities. Some of my clients actually, when they're making a payment to me, I get an email and they start negotiating with me. Do you want your money sooner? We'll give you this much at this time, and it's completely automated. And so it's got their rules in there, but in real time, I can negotiate by email. It's like in real time, yes, no, back and forth. It's very slick. And then it impacts the productivity of employees processing invoices. You should see how much time your employees are spending across departments. You'll be amazed, and we can mitigate that time spent on non-value-add activity. We can mitigate payment processing costs. Let's take more control over how and when we make payments. So how much is it costing us? What if we reduce our check amount altogether to zero, which I'd like to see? What if we're able to convert some folks to commercial card payments? We can get those rebates. However, AP is not a profit center. Don't tell your CFO AP is a profit center. You can do all these great things, and by the way, we might get rebates. Don't start with AP as a profit center. AP done right can improve working capital management, and then it impacts the productivity of employees, approving and affecting payments. And so, we talk about, let's look at the priorities again. We always want to mitigate cost, tremendous impact there. Productivity impacts, incredible, impacting the top line. And that's where I think a lot of the value is. And then we can also mitigate fraud exposures with controlling the payments that we have. And we're also impacting working capital management. So AP, you can speak the language of the CFO, communicate with impact the value of AP done right. And then some closing thoughts and resources. Serves to be a strategic priority. I hope this has become clear. To those of you in AP, you already know this, but hopefully I've showed you how to communicate with impact to your CFO. This is the case. Delivering the right accounts payable information requires an understanding of your AP information consumer. So in order to get AP running on all cylinders, we need to understand the consumers of our information, work with them to get the metrics and dashboards that they need to inform better decisions, impact better decisions. And accounts payable information is not intelligence unless it's used to impact decisions. And accounts payable done right impacts cost, it impacts top line revenue, and also supports company growth. I want to direct your attention to a few additional resources. I encourage you to visit the Esker website. They have a strong commitment to thought leadership. They have a lot of great resources, and some of these were used in putting the presentation together. The AI Advantage gives you a lot more color around AI and why you shouldn't be afraid of it. And then purchase to pay is another good white paper that we have from our strategic partners. And so I guess I have time for a few questions, so I'll go ahead and take a few questions, and then we'll launch our final polling question, and we'll make our closing comments. And so a few questions around this, and I just did a podcast on this today. So people were just kind of asking that I mentioned that I thought that AP would be reporting up through Treasury. So if a few folks are in Treasury, just kind of asking how they can tactfully engage their AP counterparts. And so my advice would be sometimes it's as easy as taking someone out to lunch. So just taking someone out to lunch who is the social person, just kind of get an idea of what the AP, just if they're investing in automation, and just something as simple as, hey, I was just on this webinar for my Treasury credits, and I saw there's a lot of stuff going on in AP. I was really wanting to take a look at the ways we might be able to work together. I think we can make an impact. But the first part of that is developing that relationship. And what we need to do is we need to get visibility into what's going on in accounts payable and do that through the right channels. And then we want to get the lay of the land first. We don't want to come in there and start telling AP what to do, right? It needs to be observable, and we need to make sure that, okay, let's talk to the treasurer and the CFO. Let's see what our influence can be and should be. And so you need to be mindful, and then you want to engage folks in AP if you're going to try and lead an AP transformation project wherever you are at the organization. You need to engage the folks that are most resistant to change, get them on board, people that are Mr. or Mrs. No. Let's engage those folks up front. Let's not fear those people. Let's not let those people torpedo progress. Let's engage them, show them how it makes that life easier. One of the ways to do that is I'd ask someone, what are the 3 most annoying parts of your job? Boom, boom, boom. And if you ask someone in AP, if you're not an AP, I would just about guarantee that other than talking to people internally that might not be nice, I guarantee that technology is going to be able to resolve all those issues and help get those folks on board. So let me go ahead and launch our final polling question as we make our closing comments here. And so I just like to once again make the point that this is a tremendously exciting time for accounts payable. And so I think we need to really take advantage of the opportunity that we have. And so, you know, I think it's a tremendous opportunity in Treasury and Finance to take advantage of the opportunity that we have. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So it looks like we had a little latency here, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the polling question up a little bit longer here. But I also want to make the point that I'm absolutely always available for you if you want to connect, if you have additional questions or would like additional resources at any time. So we would really, we'd really like to be collaborative in that way. And so let's go ahead and leave the polling question up for just a few more seconds, make some closing comments. Thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time to attend our webinar today. And I just want to once again thank our webinar partner today, Esker. We strongly appreciate their commitment to thought leadership. I encourage you to visit their website. And finally, thank you so much for your valuable time. I value each and every one of you. Make the rest of your day great, everyone. Thank you so much.